The United States military has officially locked down the southern coast of Iran, initiating a severe naval blockade that has instantly created one of the most volatile flashpoints on the globe. Publicly, the rhetoric is absolute. President Trump announced that 158 Iranian ships have already been obliterated, warning that any vessel coming anywhere close to the blockade will face a quick and brutal elimination. On the water, the U.S. Navy is now physically intercepting commercial shipping vessels attempting to travel to or from Iranian ports. Tehran has drawn its own absolute line. Iran's Revolutionary Guard explicitly declared the blockade an illegal act of piracy, issuing an ultimatum that if their ports are threatened, no port anywhere in the Gulf will be safe. This map highlights the exact choke point driving the global panic. Because of this standoff, roughly 20% of the world's entire oil supply has been frozen for 6 weeks. Worse, a fragile military ceasefire holding everything together expires in exactly 9 days. When you listen to the press conferences, it sounds like the prelude to a global war. But beneath the surface, this naval standoff is actually a highly calculated, ruthless game of economic leverage designed to prevent one. Looking at this map of the Middle East, you can see the sheer geographic reality of what the U.S. is attempting. The blockade zone is massive, stretching all the way from the Persian Gulf down to the Gulf of Oman. Military planners opted for this wide net to avoid a much riskier alternative, sending Marines to physically invade and seize control of Iran's primary oil infrastructure at Karg Island. Instead, this schematic shows the U.S. enforcement strategy. By placing naval vessels across specific shipping lanes, they physically stop commercial ships. But finding the true pressure point requires looking past the coast. China relies on Iran for roughly 1/3 of its oil supply. Watch this cycle. The U.S. inflicts maximum energy pain on China, forcing Beijing to use its massive economic weight to pressure Tehran into making a deal. Washington is essentially using its navy as a giant economic tourniquet, aiming the pain directly at Beijing to force capitulation from Tehran without firing a shot. Iran, however, has an asymmetric counter-strategy. This is the Strait of Hormuz. At its narrowest, it's just 21 miles across, and Tehran has completely sealed it off to international vessels. Zooming out, you see the ripple effect. Tehran's calculation relies on mutually assured economic destruction. If their economy is suffocated, they will ensure the global market goes down with them. And the U.S. strategy has a physical vulnerability, a bandwidth problem. The Navy simply lacks the sheer number of ships required to create a truly airtight seal across thousands of miles of Iranian coastline. Iran is perfectly positioned to exploit those gaps. They don't rely on massive cruisers. They rely on swarms of small, highly maneuverable fast attack craft that can slip past heavy blockades. If the ceasefire fails, American warships pinned inside the tight waters of the Gulf become immediate targets for these coastal surface-to-air missiles and military drones. The entire geopolitical strategy relies on a terrifying balance. Both sides are pushing the global economy right to the edge of an abyss, relying on thousands of sailors to not make a single fatal miscalculation. The current crisis presents a stark paradox. While generals promise total obliteration on television, backdoor diplomacy is quietly and rapidly accelerating. Look at these mediator notes. Countries like Pakistan, Egypt, and Turkey are actively operating an international whisper network, working quickly to bring American and Iranian technical experts into the same room. These backdoor meetings have 2 critical items on the agenda: establishing a practical framework to manage the Strait of Hormuz, and finally resolving the deadlock over Iran's nuclear enrichment. But the clock is loud. These quiet communications must yield concrete results in a matter of days before the formal ceasefire evaporates entirely. Extreme economic pain and terrifying naval deployments rarely mark the end of diplomatic relations. They are simply the brutal, high-stakes tools leaders use to restart them. The warships currently staring each other down in the Persian Gulf are serving as massive tools of leverage, intended to secure a signature on a piece of paper.